Good day. This is Shannon Kringen, Goddess Kring. My name is Shannon Nicole Kringen, and I live in Seattle, Washington. And I have orange, green, and blue glasses. And I'm going to tell you about my trip from Seattle to Houston and all the way back to Seattle. We did a big loop. We left April 2nd and we got back April 19th. So I guess that was a 17-day trip. It's the longest road trip I've ever taken. I drove with my good friend Dave Flowers, who I'm recording music with at Interactive Jack Records in Seattle. We're doing a Goddess KringFlowers music CD, and I write poetry, and Dave does music and video, audio production and mixing. So Dave Flowers came, and his 11-year-old son, Tiger, had permission to, part of his spring break was the trip, and this trip was educational, so he had special permission to write an essay and keep track of the math of the gas mileage and keep a log and a spreadsheet. So it was educational for him, and he got to meet some people his own age that were 11-year-olds in Houston. What is interesting about the trip was that people are rarely do people fit into stereotypes, and people have different opinions about topics that I don't really want to talk about. You know what? I don't feel free to express myself. I do not. There's so much judging going on in polarization in the left and the right, in the media, etc. I hesitate to say certain words that are controversial, but I'll put the glasses down. Okay, so here's the blue ones. I am an open-minded person, and I don't like hypocrites, people that are hypocritical, and people who stereotype each other and then don't acknowledge. Ooh, orange, green. My favorite are the green. I like the green, but I think because I've been doing the green, I'll do the orange right now, and then I'll switch to the blue. What I found refreshing is I had people in Seattle warn me, oh, watch out if you're going to go to some of those other states. Like we went to Idaho, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Wyoming, and Texas. That's a lot of states in one trip. And there's various kinds of conservative and liberal and libertarian and people that don't even define what their beliefs are and their lifestyle choices and their whatever their philosophy is. And there's people that stereotype each other on both sides, the two main sides, the more conservative and the more liberal. I personally hesitate to say what I really believe, but I think that I agree with the libertarian people in some ways, and I agree with some of the left and some of the right, but nothing too extreme. I don't believe in extremely humans that want to tell all other humans that they have to be a certain way or not be a certain way, and the hypocrisy of people who say that they don't believe in stereotyping each other and yet they proceed to stereotype the other people. So what I want to say is people warned us, oh, watch out, because you're going to like states that have different political ideas than what we're used to here in Seattle, Washington. The thing is, you can go too far in any direction. If somebody is too extreme and judgmental and stereotyping and making assumptions, and then a lot of that generates in the media, and it's not even based on, it might be something you hear in the media that's stressful, might be based on a real thing that happened between people, but then it gets exaggerated and taken out of context, and then humans make assumptions and then build a whole belief system based on stereotyping certain kinds of people. So whether you stereotype somebody in a positive way, like we worship famous people, or we demonize famous people, we turn famous people into heroes and villains. Whereas the reality is that most people are a little bit hero and a little bit villain. So I'm a little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll. So I have different opinions, and what I found was that we met lots of really curious, open-minded people, nice people, people who have maybe never seen an art car before, and yet I imagine the people that really didn't like our art car just didn't say anything and just kind of looked and went, "Oh God," and just thought like, "How ridiculous. Why would you do that to your car? Why would you glue, rhinestones all over your car and ruin the resale value?" Or, negative thoughts like that. But nobody said that. And in fact, the people that seemed really conservative and traditional that were not really interested in ever making an art car for themselves, they seemed curious and amused and like they had a sense of humor about the absurdity of making an art car. And one person in particular, this nice man in a truck in Wyoming, I think it was Easton, Wyoming, when I had to come over because my kids really wanted to see your car, and he had this cute son and daughter that were maybe like 6 years old or 6, 7, 8 years old, pretty young, and they were just thrilled by the car, and they wanted to look at it, and they could touch I let people touch my art car. I've got rhinestones glued, and so that person in particular, I got the vibe from him that he was, a bit conservative and traditional in terms of never wanting to make an art car. And yet he thought it was amusing and interesting and fun. And maybe he thought it was really strange or whatever. But there's an open-mindedness and a curiosity about people who live differently. And I feel that way when I go to a different country. I've been to Mexico, Australia, different countries, different places, yeah, countries in Europe, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Austria, um, England, Scotland. These are some of the countries I've been. Yeah, Australia, Mexico. I find it fascinating when people speak different languages, eat different food, listen to different kinds of music, and have different ideas about politics or about overall lifestyle, overall ways of being. And there's a difference between people who judge and shame each other for living a certain way and people who don't believe in living a certain way, and yet they live and let live. They respect, like, you do your thing, I do my thing. We can have our own private, separate way of existing. And so the people that we met seemed to be very respectful of there being different kinds of people in the world. And Houston, in particular, is a very large city. It made Seattle look really small. And so I was fascinated by being around different kinds of people. Of course, the art car community is very creative and open in a certain way, but we were around a lot of people who seemed very different from us, and they were very much amused and very much entertained by the creativity. And also, it's actually good for the economy when a whole bunch of art cars show up every year in Houston, and 200,000 to 300,000 people line the streets of Houston. That actually is a big boost to the economy. So people who are focused on economic benefit and gain, they like the art cars. And then there's more creative liberal people who don't care so much about the money part of it, but they just like the creativity and the freedom and the art. And I noticed that the concept of having freedom seems to be agreed upon in different political leaning people. So I personally am an eclectic mix of different aspects of political ideas. But I don't even want to say words on here because I don't want to be stereotyped. But let's just say I was going to do a synapse of the trip. There, I'll switch to my blue glasses. We started in Seattle, and then we stayed in an Airbnb in Nampa, Idaho, a tiny house with a hot tub. And that was fun. And it was challenging because we crammed as much as we could fit into my 2010 Honda Fit Sport. Three of us, 11-year-old and two adults. And we fit as much as we could, and then we edited out a few things. And so every day we got into the habit of unpacking, repacking, unpacking, repacking the car, because we all had our laptops with us and valuable things. And so we brought those in every night to where we were sleeping. So we stayed the first night in Nampa, Idaho at an Airbnb that was a tiny house with a hot tub. And then the second night we stayed now I'm trying to remember. Oh my gosh. I forgot. Oh yeah, Utah. We stayed near Salt Lake City, Utah, which was quite beautiful. I've been to the airport, but I've never been to actually Salt Lake City, and it was beautiful with mountains and skyscrapers in front. And then we stayed in a smaller town called Lehi. I don't know how to pronounce Lehi, Utah. And it was beautiful. And I noted the frogs were very loud at night, which was quite nice. And the stars were very bright because there was less city lights. And we stayed in a basement apartment, Airbnb with they had a video projector for the wall, and so we could watch movies on a huge, like full living room wall. It was amazing. And I found some real bargains. These accommodations, I found the cheapest prices that I could find, the most reasonable rates I could find. And oftentimes they were less than what a hotel would be, like less than an inexpensive hotel. And we wanted to stay in Airbnbs because it was more personal and because we needed our own kitchen, because we didn't want to spend a lot of money on food. And we all like to eat different things, all three of us. So we cooked our own food. So we stayed in a tiny home and then in a basement apartment with a big video screen projected on the wall. And then we stayed in, what was the third night? Then were we in, oh, we were in Fort Collins, Colorado, but we stayed in a place called Loveland, Colorado, or is it Loveland or Loveland, Colorado? And my friend Dave Flowers has an aunt and uncle that live there and cousins. He grew up partly there. He grew up and went to high school in Fort Collins, Colorado. So I got to see his high school and meet his aunt and uncle and meet his second cousin. And so we stayed in a house, about 100-year-old house in Loveland, Colorado. We got farm fresh eggs at one point, and I tried to get some farm fresh milk, but they were flat out of it, raw milk. I like to get fresh farm stuff when possible. And I'm going to go back to the orange. So we stayed in Idaho and then Utah and then Colorado. And we stayed a few nights in Loveland, Colorado, and saw the beautiful, is it called Horseshoe Mountain or Horseshoe Canyon, Horsetooth Canyon. I think I'm saying that right because there's a horse mouth or horseshoe, but I think it's Horsetooth Canyon in Fort Collins, Colorado. Beautiful lake, beautiful Rocky Mountains, Rocky Mountain High. We actually listened to the John Denver song Rocky Mountain High. I understand what he means now. I'd never seen Colorado before. It was very beautiful there and really windy and really beautiful. And I took a lot of photos and videos. And so then we were in, so Idaho, Utah, Colorado, and then Amarillo, Texas. We stayed in a really cool Airbnb in Amarillo, Texas, which was a one-room converted with a urinal in the bathroom, and there were pennies. The tile in the bathroom was actual real pennies laminated with resin. It was really cool. And a urinal in the bathroom and a toilet. We got the feeling that it was an industrial warehouse that was turned into somebody's apartment and art studio and Airbnb because the lady who runs it is an artist named Penny. And so the penny tile in the bathroom was a nice touch. And it was a one-room place and with a bathroom, living room, and kitchen partitioned off. And then the bathroom had just like a sliding door. And we had our own washer and dryer in these Airbnbs, so we could cook all of our own food and do our laundry, which in a practical level I appreciated. And then after Amarillo, Texas, we were going to head to Houston, but there was a warning, and we missed the eclipse, by the way. We were not in the right place at the right time for the eclipse, but we weren't really obsessed with doing the eclipse, and we didn't want to get stuck in a traffic jam. So we just said, whatever, the eclipse is amazing, but we didn't see it. We just look at pictures. We stayed in Amarillo, Texas, and then we were going to head to Houston the next day, but there was a tornado and hail the size of golf balls or baseball warning. But the people in Houston told us that they get told that all the time on the news, and rarely are the storms as bad as they say, or at least the way the storms in Texas work is that Texas is a humongous place. And so parts of Texas might get really bad hail or hurricane or tornado or whatever, but the rest of Texas is fine. And so that's unpredictable where these pockets of storm severity will be. The news has to warn people about it, but they were not really too concerned. They told us do whatever we want, show up, stay another day. So what we did was it was pouring rain at one point, and we drove from Amarillo to Waxahachie. I think I'm saying that right, Waxahachie, Texas. And we stayed in the cheapest hotel I could find, which even had the swimming pool filled in with dirt and grass growing on top of it. It was a pretty funky hotel, but the front desk guy was really nice, and he loved our art car. I think he was from Dubai or India or somewhere, and oftentimes people from Mexico, Thailand, uh, Dubai, how do you say Dubai? I can't pronounce certain words very well, but people from other countries where there's lots of bright colors like Pakistan, India, Thailand, Mexico, parts of the Middle East where they have lots of bright decorative color. They love my car because my car looks very festive and very maybe similar to different cultures aside from your basic American culture. But then again, my car is kind of also like a rhinestone cowboy style as well. So it kind of fits into the American country, Western music, Grand Old Opry. I would love to go to Nashville, Tennessee. I have a friend that lives there, but that's a whole nother idea to go to Nashville, Tennessee with my art car. Apparently, there's a cool art car parade in Chattanooga, Tennessee, or how do you say it? Chattanooga. Would love to see parts of Tennessee, but I haven't been to Tennessee yet. I actually love country music. I love Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and Lucinda Williams and Hank Williams and Marty Stewart and his fabulous superlatives, and lots of country music that I love, and Patsy Cline and various kinds of country music that I appreciate. I love slide guitar, I love steel guitar, I love twang, I love Southern accents. I love the sound of Southern accents, and I find them very comforting, actually. Uh, and I love Tom Petty, who widens my jetty. And Tom Petty's band was, rock and roll band, but they kind of dabbled in a little country-ish folk, rock, blues, rock, country, rock and roll, folk, and blues all mixed, swirled together. That was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So then we stayed in Waxahachie one night, and apparently we just missed a hailstorm in Houston. And we finally got to Houston, and then we stayed with a host who's a fellow art car lady who is a wonderful lady named Amy, who's a real estate agent in Houston, Texas. And she has a zebra art car, and she actually shows people real estate in her art car. And on her business card, there's a picture of her in a zebra costume on her zebra art car. It's very cool and very flamboyant and fun. I found the people in Houston to be very outgoing and friendly and um, open-minded and great sense of humor. And there's all different kinds of people in Houston. So I don't mean to generalize, but the people that we met in the art car community were just very fun. And the Houstonians that have lived there a long time, we met some of those people who live there for generations, and it was fascinating and really refreshing to not buy into the stereotype of the way people are in Texas, because there's all different kinds of people in Texas, just like there's all different kinds of people in Washington State, where I am right now in Seattle. There's different kinds of people all over the place. So why stereotype each other? We're all different. So I like that. I like to be diplomatic. I like to be open-minded. I like to allow people to have different thoughts and ideas from mine, whether it's how somebody does their art car or how somebody thinks politically or what somebody eats, whether they're omnivore, vegetarian, vegan, carnivore. I lean in the carnivore direction right now. I used to be vegan, vegetarian, and now I'm more of a carnivore. So things can fluctuate. So, let's see. So we stayed in Houston, and then we did several art car events, which I might explain in another video. And then we did a big loop instead of symmetrically going from Seattle to Houston and back. We went from Washington Idaho, Utah, Colorado, Texas. We went through Wyoming, and we visited this town called Easton, Wyoming, I think it was called, and somebody said that's a very libertarian place. I got this feeling of freedom when I was there that I really liked. And we met, one lady came up to us and said, this town needs more cars like yours. People are a little traditional and set in their ways, and we need to shake things up a little. And I thought that was a refreshing attitude that she had. And then this other lady in a coffee shop who's from California, who married her husband and moved to Wyoming, and said she misses California sometimes. Loved our car, and she had a beautiful Winnie the Pooh sweater on, which was really fun. And she was a very sweet person that we met. Forgot her name, but that was nice to meet her. And we went to this cool coffee shop and got ourselves coffee in Wyoming. And then we just kind of hung around the town a little bit and looked at some antique, like 100-year-old cash register, and some really cool, like old Wild West looking things and antiques, and just funky, like a funky town. I think it's called Easton, Wyoming. Then we headed back on the freeway, and let's do blue. We headed back on the freeway, and and then, yeah, after Houston, then we decided, because it was from Washington State to Idaho to Utah to Colorado, Wyoming, and then Texas, I think. And then after Texas, we went to Arizona and Nevada, and then back up through Idaho, and then back into Washington. So where we stayed in Arizona was Bisbee, Arizona, which is a really interesting old copper mining town, apparently. And it still kind of looks like it's the 1800s there. And my writer friend Leah lives in Bisbee. She used to live in Tacoma, Washington, and now she lives in Bisbee, Arizona. And we stayed with her for a couple of days, and she taught a poetry, diving deep into the tarot poetry workshop. It was a free poetry workshop, and we all went to that, me and my two friends, and we wrote poems. We drew tarot cards with a bunch of other people in Arizona, and we all wrote a poem based on the tarot card that we pulled, and we read them in a circle with each other and shared our poetry. And that was a really wonderful experience. I miss creative writing. I hadn't done it in a while, and I write poetry. And so I loved writing poetry with other people. And then we listened to Leah read after we did the 2-hour poetry workshop. Then she read some of her published poems. She's a published author who writes poetry, and I think also short stories. And she writes for the Bisbee newspaper also. So we got to go to the library and do that in Bisbee, Arizona. And then we got to have some good Mexican food down the road at a cantina. Forgot the name of it. And Bisbee is beautiful. The houses are all like up on the hill, and there's all these staircases, and then skinny little windy roads. And you almost reminds me of Portugal. I haven't really been to Portugal, but I've seen videos of Portugal or Greece or something where there's lots of like little funky houses on hills with windy roads. And it just reminded me of parts of Europe that I've been, kind of mixed with the Wild West. So Bisbee, Arizona, I would love to go there again. It's a beautiful place. And then after Bisbee, Arizona, we headed to Las Vegas, Nevada, where we spent one quick short night at the Circus Casino, and we checked around the different rates. We were going to stay in a cheap motel 5 miles from the strip, but then we found one that was just as cheap as the cheapest motel we could find on the strip. It was like $69 or something with no extra fees. I was sure that they were scamming us, but they said, nope, free parking and no extra fees, because they're hoping you're going to gamble. We spent exactly zero. We're not really gamblers, but we wanted to just stay right near the strip, and we walked around. We stayed up till 4:30 in the morning, walking around looking at the strip. I was fascinated by the mockingbirds in the trees on the Vegas Strip. It was sad to see so many homeless people sleeping in the streets, and some mentally ill people that were freaking out, basically, mixed in with the extreme wealth of or at least the appearance of extreme wealth. I think it's mostly a facade. A lot of people dress up and look wealthy when they're really not, and they're just trying to impress other people, but it's my opinion. But I actually have a love-hate feeling about Las Vegas. Like, part of me thinks, okay, it's a waste of money and resources, and it's really fake and really plastic. And yet I like the theatricalness, the fantasy of it. It's kind of like Disneyland for adults. It's kind of like very theatrical, very showbiz, very like Hollywood showbiz, Disneyland. The contrast of the poverty and the wealth. You look at the front of the casino and it looks quite beautiful. You walk behind and look at the free parking lot behind the casino and it's really grungy, and you see like the reality, the gritty reality, the gritty reality of Vegas versus the glitz and the glamour. Um, and it is sad to see people sitting there gambling and just people that look very physically like they're not really taking care of their bodies, and they're just sitting there gambling and drinking like a sugary, alcohol or sugar drink, and smoking a lot of cigarettes and gambling and hoping that they win big. And I don't want to judge people, but I found that part a little depressing because I'm not into drinking or smoking or gambling at all. But I love to take photos and I love to observe different kinds of people doing different kinds of things that are different than what I do. And to see the homeless people sleeping with their dogs in the streets next to the fancy hotels and the casinos, it's hard for me to not talk about the reality of that. And then to see some people that look like they were selling themselves for a living, and to see them sitting there with their makeup bags and looking like they just need a good night's sleep and a nice hot shower and somebody to love them and hug them. That was sad to see, but it was interesting to see the snapshot of human reality in that way, mixed with the glitz and the glamour and all of the theatricalness and people running around. And we saw like showgirls and guys just, Chippendales performance, performers on the street in Vegas, and then the Fremont part of Vegas, and they were saying big signs up. I think I took a photo of one that said that the performance here cannot demand money from you. It's voluntary if you want to pay them or not. They had to tell you that they weren't, because they make it sound like you have to pay them a certain amount for their performing, but it's really your choice how much you pay them. And we posed for a photo with some people and we paid them a little bit, but we paid them less than what they wanted. But we said, well, we're low income, so here's what we can pay you. So we paid them each, but we paid them very low income fees. But they probably make a pretty good living though, because there's tons and tons of people milling around and partying all night long in Las Vegas. And the mockingbirds, I think it was 3:30 in the morning, and the mockingbirds were being very loud. And I was thinking that they were fake birds, but I think they're indeed real. I want to look up the mockingbirds of the Las Vegas Strip because it was 3:30 in the morning and it's so bright on the strip still. I think the birds don't know if it's day or night. Maybe there's a special kinds of mockingbirds that live on the Vegas Strip. And then there was the grackle birds of Texas, which I'm fascinated by. And then we went to see Vegas, and then we went to Twin Falls, Idaho, where I sold some of my poetry books to the Airbnb, this sweet retired couple who runs an Airbnb, who are involved in the art community, and they wanted me to get involved with my art car in the art community, and they bought like 5 copies of my poetry book for the art gallery that they run and the Airbnb. And so I'm really happy that I connected with those people, and I'm going to stay in touch with them. And we met a lot of nice people in Houston, Texas. I'm sort of glossing over a few things, but that's the trip in a nutshell. I'm going to do a part 2 video on the specific art car events that we did in Houston, Texas. And I'm going to go through my videos and photos and do a slideshow and write a new song and poem about this whole thing. So I will end on the green. I'm in this video, but in a nutshell, that's what we did. But let's put all the glasses on now. Let's see. Yeah, we've got blue. I should have done this the whole time. Woo, there we go. Green, orange, and blue. So this is Shannon Kringen, Goddess Kring, signing out. It is April 23rd, 2024. That's my trip in a nutshell. I'm still adjusting being back to Seattle, and I had a really interesting time. I'm very grateful that I was able to take this trip, and we raised a little bit of money on GoFundMe for this. Some people bought my art and donated to us. Thank you so much. And for the generosity. And the Houston Art Car Parade and Festival, the Orange organization, I forgot what they're called, the Orange Houston Art Car Parade and Festival, put on by the Orange Organization for Arts. I forgot the exact name, but they're amazing. They're amazing, amazing group of people that support the arts, and they reimburse us for most of our gas. I'm waiting to see how much they're going to reimburse me for, but I'm really grateful. So this trip was affordable because of our wonderful donations that we received, because of our wonderful hosts that we stayed with, and because I also found bargain hotels and bargain Airbnbs and met lots of nice people, and we cooked most of our own food. So we did this trip actually on a budget, and that was pretty amazing. I know how to travel on a budget. Um, I live a very frugal life, so I can afford to do my art, and I can afford to do these trips in a frugal. And I'm still wearing the pool pass. We were too tired to swim in the pool, but we got a pool pass at the Circus Vegas, and so I still am wearing this because I want to go swim in the pool, but we were just too tired and we were sunburned and we didn't swim. But we had a pool pass just in case. Bye for now. I'll do part 2 later. I'll dive more deeply into the Art Car Houston parade events that we went to, some nighttime and daytime events, like 4 or 5 or 6 different events. Bye for now. Shannon Kringen, Goddess Kring, signing off. And listen to our music on Bandcamp, Goddess Kring, Interactive Jack Records, and the YouTube channel. I have playlists of the music I did with Dave Flowers called KringFlowers Music. We hope to get it played on KEXP Radio in Seattle and Hollow Earth Radio in Seattle. If you know how, let me know.